Merlin, network magic, now with chatbots. Hey everybody, John Capobianco here. I'm going to try to get right into it and not waste a lot of time, but let's get the whiteboard of doom out. And what are our goals here today? Okay, so I have a Nexus 9K in the sandbox, and I'm going to use, Merlin, but pyATS is the framework to go talk to this device. And first, to start with, let's learn platform, all of the platform information. Okay, so let's just do this without any input, without creating any files, without doing anything special. But what we can do is enable pyATS to talk to Webex. And this is a native feature. All we need to do is update a config file, pyats.conf. Now this file does not exist when you start a fresh install of pyATS. It's a config file you need to VI and create. So let's go ahead and do that. First, let me show you. that Webex is empty here, and I'm just going to run this with nothing. And all it's going to do is learn the function, build a CSV file, and then nothing's going to happen. And we're not going to see anything in Webex. And this will just take a second while it learns the platform. And then, okay, so it's done, and nothing has happened here. And we don't see any indication of Webex. But now, if I do VI, and make sure you sudo this, VI pyats, etc pyats.conf, and my sudo password. And this is an empty file. It's not a new file because I've been messing with it, but for you it will be a new file. So then we want to press the insert key, and let me go get the information. And I think this has to say Webex at the top, like this. So I'm just going to take that out and paste it in here. And write Q, so escape :WQ. And now if I cat that file, it will print on the screen. So now let's rerun that same pyATS job. No changes to the job at all. I've just enabled the Webex component. And let's just maximize Webex and see what happens here. And what we should get is a summary of our job in our Webex channel, and there it is. So isn't that incredible? So if you want to send this to your personal Webex or to a shared room, or a room you set up that's your pyATS log history or job monitor or whatever you want to call it, every time the pyATS job runs, you'll get the summary, and I can see that 2 steps passed. And then I can run the following command to view the logs from this job, where the archive of the job can be located, and the total runtime. Pretty neat. Okay, so let's build on this capability. And so what can we do with Webex? Well, now I'm going to jump into a bunch of Webex information here for you. So you have to go to developer.webex.com, especially if you're a network engineer and think that Webex is a UC thing and the Unified Communications team takes care of it, or the VoIP team, or it's just not your thing, right? Well, it's another upstream source to send network state information, job logs, etc., right? pyATS is a testing framework. But what good is a test, pass or fail, if nobody knows that it's passed or failed? This way we can send it in almost real time over to Webex, where people have it on their phones. I don't have my phone on me. I should go get it. But all of that stuff, that log file is available to all of my engineers on the fly, on their phone. They open up the Webex app, boom, there's the pyATS job log, or other information that we're going to see. So make sure that you log in here. Now, where you want to go is documentation. So if you're new here, you want to jump into the documentation, and it will take you kind of here. And I've clicked on basics, and this is a good Webex REST API basics document here. They talk about the file types you can attach to, and they talk about attachments. They show you how to do it in curl, how to do it in Python, everything you need to know to get going here. I haven't taken any courses or training. I've used this documentation to build what you're going to see here today. So where do we start? Well, you might have noticed that in what I pasted in that VI file was, or the pyATS config file that I VI'd, it has a room ID and a token ID. So we need the room ID, which is a big string in JSON, to send, obviously, to the room we want to communicate with. Then we need either a bot, and I'm not going to show you the bots, but you can build a dedicated bot with a key that never changes, or you can just simply get a 12-hour development key, which is what I'm using here today, which is why I don't mind showing you the token on the screen, because it's going to expire. So how do we do this? Where do I get my rooms? Well, here in the documentation is an API reference guide. And the API reference, right, you want to go find rooms. And we're in rooms, and they show you the different CRUD operations, the different REST API methods. We can get a list of rooms, we could create a room, right, all of these different things. Now, if I click on this get, it will open up this dashboard, and it shows you everything in the middle here, all of your different available options and the response codes that you might get back. And then over here, it gives you the get, which you can copy into your copy paste buffer. And right here is where you can get your bearer token. So right, you have to be logged in, and then it will let you get a bearer token. Like I'm already logged in on this session, so you have bearer token, you can just copy it. So that's what you need. You need that bearer token. And you can do all of this right in the browser here. Let me go back to Rooms. But what I like to do is copy this, the link, hop over to Postman, make a collection called Webex, and then here's Get Rooms. Now I think I have to refresh my token there. So let me show you. Let me just go get the token and show you how this is done. So you copy your token. And then in Postman, you have your URL here to Rooms. And then I'm going to just update my bearer token here, save that, and send. Now what I'm going to get back, hey, is a list of all of the rooms, including instant messages from people in the community. But somewhere in here should be, there's Merlin. So this is the main Merlin room. And I take this ID as my room ID for subsequent posts to make messages in this room. I can also do the same for messages, and I can post messages. I can do tests. But for now, I have the room ID. I need that. So then I want to send a message. So I go to my messages reference, and I go to post messages, and it shows me how to post a message and the API I need to post it to. Now, if we take a look here, and this is what we're going to do. First, yes, you can send just regular text, but look, it has Markdown. Now, I want to highlight that the Markdown is somewhat limited, and how you can find out the limitations is to click on the Markdown button, and it will give you all of the different supported things. For example, I tried to send a table. It doesn't support Markdown tables, but it does support italics and bold and headers and links and different things. So, I'm going to send a Markdown message. Now, if you look at this, I'm going to show you the body of a post here to a message. We have to post the room ID, and then in our case, the Markdown. Now notice, this is one long string here. And what a problem is with a header is that it's going to treat everything after the ampersand as the header. And it's just one long string. So I like to send the header separately. And let's just send this. I need to update my token in here real quickly. And what we can do is send it from Postman as a test, a Markdown test. So there's my body again, my room ID, test from Postman, send. And then if I check in my Webex, I have the test from Postman as a Webex header. So let's do the same thing, but Pythonically in the Merlin code. So I have all my code stashed here, and the first one is the header. So let me just grab the header and take it out of my stash, and we're going to put it here. And I got to make sure all this is lined up. Width is lined up with width, and then all of these need to come back. Yeah, there's something wrong with my copy paste here. Let me just copy this again. with steps, and then this is going to say, right, send Markdown header. And what all I'm doing here is I have a template that has the Webex header, and I'll show you the Jinja 2 template. So I have a series of headers. I have my Jinja 2 template for the header, and it looks like it just looked in Postman, except I'm passing the room ID in as a variable. And then I have my pyATS platform learn. And because it's Markdown, I can put breaks in and have multi-lines, which is what I'm doing here. I'm going to have 2 lines, a header line, and then an underline. Now up in the here at the top of the Python, I have my room ID and my token as variables that then I feed into, right, the authentication is the bearer token, and the room ID I'm feeding in here into the Jinja 2 template. So let's save this, and now let's try to get the header row Pythonically inside of Webex. Roddy's having some fun with me. He doesn't know that I'm recording. Roddy's an excellent member of the community. You should find him on Twitter. He's an author. He's a CCIE. He's a very good guy. And I'm going to let him know here. Okay, so there, let me just tell Roddy here, hey, you are going to be in the video. Okay, so now I have my header and then my job result. And you can see I have 2 passed, and there's my header. So great. So that's where we're building on top of things. So now let's actually send the Markdown, the network state information from show platform as a Markdown message. So right after the header, I'm going to bring in, and these aren't lined up right. And so I'm going to send the Markdown, and this is just the Markdown. And again, I have another Jinja 2 template that I'll show you real quick that looks like this. So now, let me just do two fields here. How I build this to start, and then I collapse it all down. I build it like this. And I'm not going to do all of them. So I take all of these fields and put them vertically, and I put the header and the variable and then a break, and then because it has to be a single line, I collapse it all down. All right, so now let's see what Markdown looks like with that same data set. And I haven't shown you the data set. Let me back up a step. I got right into it. This is what we're doing, right, with learned platform, is this JavaScript object notation. All right, I should have anchored and started here. But the learned platform gives us all this great stuff about the chassis, the slot information, and then the virtual devices. Now there is a limit, not in the adaptive cards, I don't believe, but there's a limit, a character limit in the Markdown we can send. So I'll show you, I don't send the virtual slots, for example, or other things like that. I'm just sending the parent information. So let me get Webex up. And what we should get now is the header and then the Markdown version of the learned platform JavaScript object notation. And there it is. So this information right here that I'm going to put the celebrate on is, right, we sent our header, and now we've sent Markdown. And I could put things in text or bold or italics. I could do different things with the data, but that is the Markdown. Now, let's see if we can attach a file, right, a file attachment to this and include the CSV version of that command. Now, this is going to take me a couple seconds to unwind and unravel for everybody because attaching files is a little bit different. So I'm going to say attach file. And there's files and there's attachments. And you have to be clear in Webex. File, you can attach one file to a message, and it's a file. And there's a specific list of file types, typically Office Suite, XLS, Doc, etc. But an attachment is something different, and we'll talk about attachments in a second. But let's back up. I don't have a Jinja2 template for the attachment, but what you can see is I have data equals M. Well, what is M? Well, if we go up to the top here, where is my M? Right here. You can see that I've declared M equals multi-part encoder. Because it's multi-part, it can't all fit on one straight line. So you need to actually import this from the requests tool belt, which you also have to pip install. So you need requests and then the requests tool belt to get into multi-part encoder. And then we have our text, learn platform CSV file, the files we want to attach, which is this local XLSX file. And then we say open it, and then we also specify that it's a text SLX. Now, what are we trying to attach? Well, we have the Markdown, but wouldn't it be great if they could get a spreadsheet with every field, all of this information, inside of Webex, a true spreadsheet of the show platform data? Why not? Let's go for it. So again, here, I'm just posting that M data, and M data is going to attach that CSV file, or that, I say CSV file, the XLS file. Okay, so let's try to get that attachment in there. I have changed clothes. My wife wanted to go for a bike ride, so I stopped the video recording to go for a bike ride in Gatineau Park. But let's get right back into the code. And we were going to, again, try to post data M, which is M, the multi-part encoder, which includes our room ID, the text header, and the file we want to attach. So let's go ahead and run it, and let's get Webex up. And I'll also show you, I have my phone. And so I'm in the room here, and we can see the last job result. But hopefully in semi-real time, we can see it on the screen in Webex and on my phone in Webex. And this time we'll get the Markdown header, and now hopefully a CSV attachment of the Learn platform data. So there, if we see it, yeah, there it is. So we scroll up, and there's the XLS file, and I can download it locally. It's right there on my phone, and we can open the CSV file, right? A real-time chatbot. So let me switch back over to the main screen here to myself and tell you what's up next. So that, again, is I would call the basics of, and it's I don't want to imply that it's easy, but that's the basic. One, can we enable, and it's very easy, room ID, token ID in your pyATS.conf file. Then you've enabled the summary message in the channel from any pyATS job. Then we've started to use the Webex APIs to post in messages. So one, a Markdown header, right? Learn platform, and then the Markdown, and then now we've just attached a file. Now I want to highlight there's some limitations to text and Markdown. It's like 1700 and XYZ characters. So there is a character limit that you have to deal with, and it can only be on one line with breakpoints that you put in the Markdown, which is okay, but it's limited. So let's move on to something that I've found, and I'm going to go back to my, let me just find the page first. So we're going to go to the developers documentation on Webex. And let me share my screen again. So from here, we're going to go to the documentation and follow these cookie crumbs. So we go to API reference, messages, and we're going to post a message, create a message. And if we look down here, okay, so we've dealt with text and Markdown and files, and there's the file attachments guide that we followed. Well, here there's something called attachments. And you can attach an adaptive card. And there's a cards guide I'm going to bring us to. And here they talk about buttons and cards. a new level of interactivity to Webex users by adding buttons and cards to your apps. And this is a very good sample design. Now I want to show you something here in a second. This is a good explanation. They give you some sample data you can use. But here they talk about trying it in your own design studio. So this is the sample card and what a card can look like. And you can see that we can add containers, elements, inputs, all this stuff. And then at the bottom, they have the card payload editor, where we can actually update the JavaScript, or we could work with the card structure over here. So now if we make a new card and start with a blank card, can we, with the JavaScript object notation of the network state, in this case the Learn platform, can we create an adaptive card? So I have some of this working, but let me polish it up, and then I'll bring us back in and show you how I've tackled this and what an adaptive card with network state data looks like. So stay tuned, I'll be right back. Okay, everybody, I'm back, and let's explore adaptive cards. Now, I don't proclaim to know everything about this. I've just recently stumbled upon it, like last night. But it's been pretty easy, and I've had some pretty good success with it. So let's take a look. And again, this is the buttons and cards. It's going to be under the REST API guides, buttons and cards. Or you can find it, if you follow the cookie crumbs, through the messages documentation. Now, this is the sample one they give you. And I've had success, except I can't get the icon. Even if I use their sample data, I can't get, for some reason, images to post. But I didn't want to let that hold me up. Use your imagination and we'll figure that out. It's some schema thing or some tags thing. We can use images. I did get background images to work, but it just didn't turn out to be pretty, so I've omitted backup images. So now, one thing I wanted to show you, a couple things I want to show you. How am I getting this payload, right? Data that looks like this at the bottom of the screen with the network data? Well, I'll show you how I've done it. I started with my HTML template, if you can believe it. But yeah, I went into my original Merlin Learn platform, and all of this logic here that you see at the bottom makes the HTML page. So what I want to do in my adaptive card is take, and I went down to, and this is important, just like the text and Markdown, there does seem to be some upper limitations on how big a card we can make. So I can't include anything below like the slots and the virtual. It was just too much data for the card. So I took, device type down to version here, the header in plain text, and then here in the variables that are parsed from the JavaScript object notation that we get back from the learn function in pyATS. Well, the adaptive card looks very familiar and similar. So we have to include the room ID and the Markdown for the, I changed this from text to Markdown so I could make this a header. And then our attachment, remember we're dealing with attachments here, and we're attaching a type of adaptive card that has a schema that it calls and has a content type. And, oh, maybe that's my problem. I'm going to look into that. Maybe that's why I'm not getting images or buttons, is the content type. Something just dawned on me. I'm going to come back to that and maybe change something and try it. So then, right, here's the image that I'm trying to get posted. And then here is, right, I'm having a column set, and I have a column with a width. And this is where I'm putting in the plain text. Device type, chassis, serial number, etc. And then here I have my second column, where I have the variables that follow. And then, I have some things. I've tried to add a button and a hyperlink at the bottom. And this is like a mix mash of JSON and Markdown inside of a Jinja2 template being rendered from JSON. Okay, so I know it's maybe a lot for you, but let's just watch this run. And I'm actually going to change this. I'm going to try this in my, and this might make this job fail, and that's okay. But in my post here for my adaptive, where it says content type here, instead of application JSON, I'm going to try application. Maybe this will make my images and stuff work. I don't know. Let's try it. Let's try it. So I'm going to run the job. And I noticed the phone didn't display very well, but I don't know. I'll see if I can angle it maybe a little better. But I'd like to see what this adaptive card looks like in WebEx and then in WebEx on my phone. And then see if on my phone if the buttons and stuff work and in WebEx. So where did WebEx go? And we're in Merlin, and let's see. So I didn't get the adaptive card. I wonder if that type really made a problem with it. Yeah, unsupported media type. Oh well, okay. So again, here you can see this is not a bad run anyway, to kind of recap. We have a header in Markdown. We have the Markdown. We have the attachment as CSV, and then we have our results. So now let me run it and change that type back. It was worth a shot. I thought maybe that's why the image isn't going to show or something. I don't know. I'll see if I can figure that out. It's not a big deal. It's just a little logo, but I'm just such a perfectionist. I'd love to see that logo. So let's take a look here, and then I'll backtrack once we have the adaptive card in here. So there's and there is the adaptive card. Pretty neat, right? So it's Merlin Network Magic as a header. Right here in this white space is supposed to be a WebEx logo. And then there's our columns of data. And, you know, a little bit of text. Merlin has provided this information for the DevNet Nexus 9K sandbox. That's a variable. That would say your device name using pyATS Learn platform. Merlin resources, and here I can click there and it takes me to the GitHub repo. Or I can click the button, and the button's live, and take you to the blog post about how this is done. Pretty neat. Now let's see about the phone. And I don't know. Again, I don't know how to angle it or so that you can see it, but if I go into the Merlin, there is the card, the adaptive card, which looks gorgeous. And I click on the button, takes me to the GitHub repo. I click on the other button, right? Takes me to the Automate Your Network blog. Just incredible, just incredible. And I'm just scratching the surface here. I'd love that button to be able to, and hopefully someone can reach out and say, easily done, John. Forward the card to some other room, or like make it an escalation type thing, right? We've received this message in a WebEx channel. Let's do something with it. Email, forward the message, run some bit of Python. And I know you can make API calls from there, so maybe make an API call upstream, right? Open up a ServiceNow ticket. Click the button, calls to API call up to ServiceNow, feeds it the network data, created a ticket right from the WebEx, right? So I wanted to point out a couple things. There is a Schema Explorer. And, you know, I took this right from image. I don't know why my image isn't working. The example's right here. This is all I'm doing. But anyway, it just bothers me so much. There's all the action stuff down here behind buttons, and action execute. Everything for a deeper dive into the schema. I would recommend the Schema Explorer. The other window I have open is actually, if you go to postman.com, Cisco DevNet, they have, look at all this, and it's live in a browser. So down here at the bottom, the very last one actually, is the Webex Messaging API. And I've gone into messages, and right, there's all these messages here. Create a message, plain text, right, all these great things. So now I think right from the browser, if I say create a message, and room ID, right? So let me do this right from the browser with my data from Postman, just to see and show you how powerful this browser app is. So that's my data, and if I hit send, oh, it needs me to sign in. All right, that's unfortunate. But yeah, it's a living, breathing Postman right in the browser. You don't even need a thick client. And then, so let me just wrap it up there for the video and close all this stuff down. Here's what my plans are for the actual release and for what I'm going to do between the end of this video and when I upload it overnight and when you actually watch the video. I hope to finish Learn Platform, which we've done, and then I'll do Learn Routing, just to do more of a, instead of the platform, let's look at the routing. And then I'll do 2 show commands. Let's say show IP interface brief and another show command. And show VRF, I think I've already done. I'll add some logic to interface brief so we don't overwhelm the card. I'll make it like a condition that if the interface is up, I want to see it in a card. I could make another one that maybe if interface is down, but I think because of 48 interfaces, even up, we'll have to see. Or maybe I'll make it where per interface we'll get a card. Now that might be a little overwhelming for the Webex, but at least you'll never hit an upper limit on the size of the card you're posting. I'll see if I can sort out the image thing, and I'll be posting this overnight. So between now and then I'll be on Twitter and pretty active, but I'll be around, so reach out and clone the repo, and I'm here to help if you want to start making your own chatbots. Thanks for watching the video, and I'll see you real soon. Stay safe.